rails in the basement, but anything that needed fixed, he hired it to get fixed. And so I didn't learn from him, and we didn't have the internet, so I just learned from other people that knew how to do what needed to be done. So I'll try to get this thing to stay on. So another thing my wife is really good at, she was a seamstress. She sewed like crazy. And we both discovered we like remodeling and building houses and stuff like that. So I've got a daughter that's 40 this year. She lives over in Scotland, near where you came from. And she's kind of the pioneer in the family. She went over there to get an education and stayed. And so she's got a 35-acre farm. And she's built a tiny house, and then she built a welcome center, like a meeting building like this, and now she's building the real house. So she's over there. And I have a son who's 38, and he got into film before film left North Carolina, decided he didn't like that, didn't know what he wanted to do, and ended up going to work for one of my customers in my work life. I worked for a manufacturer, and we had distributors, and he ended up going to work for that distributor. Now he owns that distributor. It's a 101-year-old company. And my advice to him, he's like, what should I do? I'm done with school, what should I do? I said, find work that's fun. Because if you get paid for having fun, you're not going to work. You're going somewhere to have fun, and a paycheck's a result. And so my wife worked in retail, and she would come home. We were living in an apartment. She'd come home and say, look how much money I saved. And my question was, how much money did you spend? I got 60% off. Well, you paid 40%. Did you really need another one of those? So that was kind of my mindset. And so she immediately got the job of keeping the budget, because then she could see the inflow and the outflow and the no flow and the backup and things that you need to see when you're doing that. So I went from going to school, living at home, to getting married, living in an apartment. So I never had whatever there is in between those two. And she's paying rent, and I'm like, how much is this a month? Why isn't that going into a bank to pay for a house, to build equity? So as soon as we could get out of our lease, we did. We bought this really old house in a city up in Ohio, a nice old house in the city, and it was, the same payment was now making a house payment. So that was a good decision in my game. Interesting story. A neighbor came to the door with a misplaced package, and he said, your house has quite a history. I said, yeah, it looks pretty old. He says, yeah, it's 150 years old, and it used to be the Longacre Funeral Home. We're like, should we move? But we didn't. So anyway, we stayed there 2 years, and if you saw the weather today, it's like typical Ohio when it's not raining. This was a sunny day because you can actually see a shadow under the car. So, that's what we dealt with. And we didn't really like that weather. And our neighbor said, oh, you need to move to North Carolina, you need to move to Virginia, just get out of Ohio. So we did. And so we came down here looking for something different. And we found this lake shack. We looked at 4 or 5 other things, but it was the only thing that was affordable. And so we told the realtor, find us a bank. The interest rates were 17 3/4 back then on a mortgage. Just imagine that. So find us a bank, and we'll put 50% down, and we'll buy this lake shack. Not knowing what we're going to do with it. We're still living in Ohio. So we bought the lake shack, and we ate grilled cheese a lot, and we ate soup a lot, because everything we made, we put into converting the shack into a house. We moved in there with a sofa bed, 2 lawn chairs, and our kitchen consisted of a game table, a microwave, a toaster oven, and an electric skillet. And we did that for 15 months. So that was life. Weather like today, we didn't have AC. We were just there. So it was nice to go to work because it had air conditioning, but at night, then we would work all night till 11 o'clock and then get up and do the same thing the next day. And so, we kind of toughed it, but we had 8 to 5 jobs. We learned that heat's kind of important. In November, we didn't have heat yet, so that was kind of critical. But anyway, after 15 months, we finally got to bring our stored furniture out of storage. So in my work life, my third boss, I wasn't changing jobs, they just kept changing bosses. He called me frugal. I thought, I guess that's not a slam, it's pretty true, you know. I don't have the first dollar I ever made, but I have a frugal mindset. And so my wife quit working after 7 years, which happens to be how many years you have to work in order to collect Social Security. So any of you ladies who are working on your MRS degree, work for at least 7 years with a W-2, and then you can, when you retire, then like 40 years later, you can collect Social Security. If you work 6 years, you're not going to get any. So that's your tip of the day. So when she retired, she was actually pregnant with our daughter, and she planned to go home anyway. And AT&T was having a cutback. This is one of the God stories. Her co-worker was a guy, and he was the breadwinner. She was a breadwinner too. But anyway, he was the breadwinner at the family, and he was going to lose his job when she came back off maternity leave because she had, you know, a little more seniority. So she worked it out with management to like let him keep his job and give me the severance package. So she got paid 7 months pay for not showing up for work. So that was a real blessing. And so now we're working on 40% of our total income it used to be. So we just figured out how to do it. More grilled cheese sandwiches, more soup. So, but by then we'd been in the house for 3 or 4 years, and we pretty much had it dried in. I won't say it was done, but it was pretty complete. And so then about, I don't know, probably a year later, I changed jobs. I used to work for a distributor, and I went to work for a manufacturer, which is like kind of similar but kind of different. And so now I'm having to go away 6 to 8 nights a month and spend time on the road. So I didn't really take a pay raise to do this, but the benefits of having a company car and having some meals paid for, and you look up the IRS rules and take full advantage of them, and they work to my benefit. It's like tax-free dollars when you have some perks if you're working for a company like you do. So anyway, my boss, who called me frugal, said I was frugal. Basically, my mindset is I'm spending company money the same way I spend mine. It's less confusing. You know, if you have a mindset to do your best with everything you do, then you don't have a work life and a life. You just have a life. So one of those things involved company cars. We'd drive the car 125,000 miles, and most of them would like push them over the hill at that point. Well, I took care of mine like it was mine because it was going to be mine. I bought 10 of my company cars, and they became my wife's company car. Not her company car, but her car. You know, they take the kids to the games car. And so did that 10 times, and it was so lucrative. I actually bought 5 more from coworkers and sold them to people like Art and Asha, and my daughter, my son. Yeah. At one point, we had 4 Intrepids in our driveway. It was easy to change the oil. One filter, fix them all. So we did that. So, and you know, kind of the end story of that, you're driving a 3-year-old car with a lot of miles on it, but she didn't drive very much. So at the end of 3 years, then she had a 6-year-old car with not many miles on it, relatively speaking. So we'd buy the car for $6,000, drive it for 3 years, sell it for $5,000. So financially, we're paying $300 a year, where a lot of people are leasing a car for $300 a month. Yeah. So that worked for 10 years. So how many dollars is that was saved? Now, again, these are just practical things that have worked out for us and could work for others. Yeah, so my thought pattern was, you know, let somebody else take the depreciation. But when I was your age, I was like, oh, I gotta get a new car. And so 6 out of my first 10 cars were new, and I got beat up on the depreciation. But since then, I've had like, I'll put it on here, 20 cars, and only one's been new. So today, I played golf today, and I'm leaving. I'm getting ice out of the scoop to put in my ice water because water's free. And I hear a guy buy a beer for $4.50. I'm like, how many $4.50 beers have I not bought in my life? I'll tell that in this class tonight. Okay. I made the decision early not to consume alcohol, and so I don't know how much that saved me. It might have saved my life, but anyway. And like, you know, steak dinners, you know, you don't have to buy the $85 steak. You can get the less than that, or go to a different restaurant. You know, if you go on a married date, lunch dates are less expensive than dinner dates. So going back to cars, you know, fuel efficiency, that's obvious. So back in 16, I bought a truck, and it just tore me up to get 10 miles to the gallon. It cost me 40 cents a mile to drive that truck. I'm just like barely using the gas. You know, you've got some gas hogs in your driveway. You know, it's just what it costs. But it was a work truck, so I hauled stuff with, you know, it did things where I would have had to pay somebody money to deliver it, so it worked out okay. I bought it for less than $1,000, used it for 10 years, only drove it 4,000 miles, and sold it for $13,000. So that worked out really good. I wish I could do it again. Like my go-to car is a Durango, because I can get 10-foot lumber in it, even though I quit building stuff. I can get 10-foot lumber in it. I can get 6 people in it. It cost me 25 cents a mile to drive. So my wife has a Tesla, and how that happened was her sister, who's 5 years younger, shows up in this cute little Beamer, and my wife's driving the family truck still. And so after the family get together, she said, you know, kids aren't here anymore. I really don't need to drive your used SUVs. I could get a little car like Mindy's. I'm like, wow. And I'd already heard about the Model 3, and this is back in 17. So I looked into it. We took a test drive. I liked it. She liked it. So we got it. And it cost 5 cents a mile to drive. You know, the list price on it is the same price as, probably less than the Beamer. And we've had it now for 8 years. I put 1 set of tires on it. And we had one little battery, not the battery, actually the 12-volt battery. Costs like $80 to get that changed. So it's been financially a really good move. Let's see where I am now. So other things I do that I do not pay a technician to come and do. Oh, by the way, when we were living in Ohio and we bought that 150-year-old house, my in-laws bought me this book, Complete Do-It-Yourself Manual. Yeah, Happy Birthday, John, 1980. So it's been around for a while, and obviously I didn't throw it away. I mean, how to wire a house, how to plumb a house, how to do everything, and it really came in handy when I was building a house. And this is another one, how to design, build, and remodel and maintain your own home. But this is all pre-internet stuff. You guys have a total advantage now, because like last 2 weeks ago, when the ice maker quit on the refrigerator, I just went on YouTube and asked YouTube how to replace that particular ice maker, and they told me what parts I needed. And there's a place out here called Ray City Appliance. Bill and Marshall, Bill and Debbie work there. They've been there as long as I've been around here, which is 43 years, and they know appliances like I know what I used to know. And so I just call them up. I need this part number, they get the part. And so I fixed the washing machine. I mean the ice maker. I've installed 8 dishwashers. Not in my house, but the in-laws, my parents, my son's other house, and I guess the other 5 are at our house. But anyway, that's not a hard thing to do. If you call a technician, it's gonna be $200-300 labor to put in whatever dishwasher you decide to get. So, you know, go on YouTube, it's there.
Or we'll call you.
Or call me. Or call me. Let's see what else. Fix the dryer. You know, dryer's making a weird noise. Google it, find out why the weird noise. It's either the belt or the pulley or the shoes. And so just keep, you know, fix it yourself. On new appliances, I go ahead and jump in and I buy the 5-year warranty, because it's, okay. There's a place down in Anderson, South Carolina called Electrolux. You've heard of that name, they like make sweepers. Well, they also make Whirlpool, all the different brands of washing machines, I mean refrigerators. And I was in there one day and there's a sign, 13,500. That's how many refrigerators they made that shift. And they got a 3-shift operation. So they're making 30,000 refrigerators a day. And I'm like, where are they all going? Well, it's built-in obsolescence. If you get a 40-year-old refrigerator, it's still running. Everything's designed to fail now. So get the 5-year warranty, because sometimes the failure happens before the planned failure. And then, it's new. And things that are gonna break usually will break within the first year or two, and you'll have it all replaced and up and going. Let's see here. So, this color wall's nice, but somebody's gonna want it to be a different color someday. So I can't tell you how many coats of paint are on all the walls in our house, but every room's got at least 3 different colors that it's been over the last 40 years. So I've become a decent painter, Hiring painting is expensive. Doing your own painting costs whatever the paint costs. My wife is not a decent painter, okay? She pushes too hard and it runs, or it's all up against the trim. And so I do the painting. Hope you don't get to see this. Let's see what else we've done recently. Oh, painting the outside of the house, okay? So our house is made out of cedar. It was a great idea 40 years ago. If I had to do it organic brick, because you don't have to mess with it. But every 8 to 10 years, you get to paint it again. And so I had a guy come out to quote me, because I did it after every 10 years, the first 30 years. So last 2 summers ago, I thought it's time to paint the house. We're not changing colors, we're just gonna do the same thing. And so this guy came out and quoted me $28,000. I'm like, I'm not trying to buy a house, I'm trying to paint a house. He's like, that's just what it is. We're gonna do two things of pressure wash, and then we're gonna spray it on. I'm like, no, I want it brushed on. I want it going in the wood. I don't want it on the wood. He's like, no, we don't do that. $28,000. Yeah, I'll get back to you on that. So anyway, I bought the extension poles to go on the pressure washer. I can reach 30 feet, but man, when you hit this, it'll knock you over backwards if you have an angle on the end of it. But so anyway, I pressure washed the house and got a guy from the church here to come, and instead of $28,000, it was $1,700 plus paint. So that worked out. Years ago, I built my deck, and decks don't last forever when they're made out of wood, so I had to redeck it. So, I put the nails in, I pulled the nails out. Now I use screwed it all down, so I should be good for another 40 years. Yeah, if I lived to 120. Okay, so sheds, yeah. So I built a shed. You can go to Lowe's and buy one of those sheds, and they're like from, trying to remember the price on them, right around $2,000, $2,300. You can get a real cheesy one for about $1,700 for a 12 by 12 shed. And so I got on Craigslist back in the day, and I was over in Knoxville one day for my work, and a guy had 10-foot 2x4s. You can get 32 10-foot 2x4s in the trunk of a Dodge Charger and drive 4 hours and take them home. And they were $1 a piece. So, I don't know how much I saved, but it was great. So, yeah, that's just the kind of things I did to save. So I built a shed for $600. So, great. I mow my own lawn. Just did it yesterday. Just did it 5 days prior to that. Grass is growing like crazy right now. I was playing golf with a guy, and he was talking about his lawn. I don't do that anymore. I got this guy, he said, I pay him $650 a month, and it looks like a golf course. I'm like, for $650 a month, it better look like a golf course, So I'm saving that much. Pressure washing. Yeah, I try not to do it, but when you have to, you have to. So I bought a little electric pressure washer, and for like $100, you're gonna pay somebody $100 just to show up, plus their hours. So hook it up to the hose, plug it in, go away. Spray away. Yeah, I do stuff like wash my own windows. If I need a receptacle here or there, I'll run another wire and do that. Recently, we live in the country, so we got a well. And our well was 50 years old, and it failed 2 years ago. It didn't really fail, it just made iced tea looking water, and nobody wants to drink that. And my wife likes white sheets, and we didn't have any because they were all iced tea colored. Get a different well. So we had, that's something I couldn't do. I couldn't go out there and drill down in the ground 200 feet and make water come out. But there's companies that do that for $7,000. So anyway, we had to bite the bullet and do that. And they're like, what are you gonna do with your old well? Oh, that's my irrigation well, I'm keeping that. So that was fine, and watering the garden, and the other day, open the hose and I don't hear, the pump isn't on. Something's broken. And I almost gave it up. I almost like, who's that guy in Troutland that did wells? I can call him, he'll troubleshoot it. And I'm like, it's either the motor or the contactor or the pressure switch. It's electrical. There's three things. Put on your big boy pants, get in the well house and fix this thing. So I crawled in there and unscrewed the little knob and took it off, and there's a wire. It was just like no longer connected. It had at one point been connected, but when I touched it, it was all wiggly. And if it's all wiggly, it means it's getting hot all the time. So it cooked itself. It took 30 years, but it cooked itself. And so for like 10 minutes in a wire connector that I already had, don't ever throw anything away, I put it together. And you know, I didn't have to call the $80 guy. So that worked out. So, you know, when we moved down here, the guy who encouraged me to come said, we're like pilgrims. We build our own houses, we cut our own firewood. I'm like, yeah, let's do that. So we did. And we were like 25 years old. And so I've got trees in my yard that are now stumps. And I've got 3 sheds that hold three cords of wood each, and I burn 1 shed per winter. And that saves me hundreds of dollars on my power bill in the winter because Sue likes it toasty. And so we stay warm. And for now, the wood's free. So furniture. While I was making some notes, I looked over at a chair. I've known that chair now as long as I've known my wife, 43 years. It's been 4 different chairs. It's a great frame. Why throw it away and go to IKEA and buy something that isn't? Take it to a reupholstery place. And for $200, you can reupholster a chair and have a $600 or $700 chair. If you need a reference on that, I got one. So, you know, the Restore is a great resource for getting deals and other bargains. I'm a BOGO guy, such a BOGO guy that Publix emails me, a personal email me, telling me what's on BOGO that I bought before. You know, when you put your phone number in there, and they keep track of all that crap. So, so like today, they told me Lance crackers were BOGO. I'm like, okay, because I just ate my last pack. I gotta have some more Lance crackers. You know, when you're doing big jobs like the pump thing, get a couple or 3 quotes. You know, or painting a house thing, get a couple or 3 quotes. You know, it costs the guy a little bit to come out, but if you just go with the first one, you may be paying too much. Like concrete work and tree work, and you know your limits and stay safe. So just some other stuff in the past. I always change my own oil. Even with my company car, I change my own oil. And the boss is like, John, what are these receipts for John's garage oil change? $18. I'm like, well, I just do it myself. He says, everybody in the company goes to an oil change place, John. Just go to the oil change place. I'm like, it's 15 minutes to the oil change place. I can change the oil in 15 minutes and be back for dinner. I don't want to. We don't want you crawling up under your car besides the company thinks you're making too much money. I'm like, at 18 bucks, I'm just charging you for parts. He said, just do it. So I haven't changed my own oil now for like 10 years, but I'm gonna start again. Except the darn filter is down. It's not a screw on anymore. Okay, so my rule on tools. You guys got tools. My rule on tools: borrow it twice, then you got to buy it, or rent it, and then you got to buy it. Because if you needed it twice, you're going to need it a third time. So Craigslist. I used to do a lot of Craigslist. Now it's all Marketplace. There's my price. Shed for $2,000, $600. So my two of my favorite TV shows. None of you are old enough to remember the Bob Newhart show. Google it and watch it on YouTube. It's really funny. Okay, you do? Okay. This guy and his wife owned this inn in Vermont, and they would get all these strange people that would come and visit. And it's a great sitcom, and entertaining and clean and wholesome and fun. And Bob Newhart's a crack up anyway. And one of my other shows, okay, so I'm at a golf outing with some of my customers, and I'm telling them that I really like HGTV. They said, John, that's like ESPN for girls. You shouldn't watch that. I'm like, I love it, because I love messing with houses and stuff. So one of my favorite shows on there was called Income Properties. It's probably not on there anymore. And we don't have cable at home, so the only time I could watch cable was when I'm on the road, which is, about 8 nights a week, a month. So I'd watch Income Properties, and I'm thinking, that's so cool. You can live someplace while it's making you money. How can I do that? I'm thinking like downtown Mooresville places, like the old bicycle shop was 2-story. You could live up there. And, I'm just in my mind like that's really a good idea. So anyway, to relate to that, we had. I did show you our first house, not our first house. This is what we bought in 1982. Okay. Very homey, yeah. And I'll just show you a couple of pictures. That's what the inside looked like. Nice. Not finished yet. And then, I had the contractors come out. I couldn't do it. So I had contractors come out and lay block and build a house and turned it into that. That was like 1984. So that's what I did with that. So next to that was a detached garage. And I got the brainstorm in 2016. I told Sue, I said, I'm still able, I still want to build stuff. Let's take the roof off the garage and build an office up there. Because I was working out of the house. And that way I'll get out of your house and I'll have my own office up there, which I only spend about 5 hours a week anyway. And she said, really? I said, yeah. I said, and then also I said, the roof of the house is facing east and west, and I want it to face north and south so we can put solar panels on it and make some electricity. So what we did was we tore the roof off the old garage. It was just an attic up there, keep stuff you don't need, and added a little space on the side, and then put some trusses up or some rafters, and then had these guys come over and stand some walls up, and then I got busy doing every service that I could do. And anyway, we turned it into this really kind of cool office with a full kitchen and an office and a meeting room and a bathroom. And so that was my idea, and my sales pitch to Sue was, see, what we'll do is we'll make that an office, and then when I retire, when I'm 70, which would have been like 10 years from then we'll convert it to an apartment and rent it to some single girl from church for $1,200 a month. And then we won't have to downsize. And she said, okay. So we did. And so after it was all done, it took me 22 months to do it because I was doing it myself. I didn't do the siding. I didn't do the wallboard, stuff that shows. I did paint it inside and out. I did the wiring. This time I had it plumbed because I learned on the first house I plumbed wrong. I did the installation, and I found like 80% of all the materials on Craigslist. I mean, all the trim, all the windows, all the doors, they all came off Craigslist. Somebody's leftovers off their project. So that was big savings. 30 minutes is up. And so, let me pull this back up. So anyway, Terry Manning, you know her from church? She was big into real estate. Now she's selective about her customers. But anyway, she said, let me see what you're doing up there. Let me see what you built. So she walked in, she said, this needs to be an Airbnb. I said, huh? She said, this needs to be an Airbnb. I said, what's that? She said, look it up.
Google it.
So yeah, Google it. So I Googled it. I'm like, ooh, that's a pretty good idea. So it was an office for like maybe a day and a half. And so at that point, I was like 59, gonna work another 10 years, and had already taken my 401k. By the way, if you have an opportunity for 401k and they max it out. So I'd taken that money and given it to a financial advisor here in Mooresville who gave me a steak dinner. It wasn't really a fair trade, but anyway, I had proven to myself that I was terrible at managing money. at picking the right stock that's gonna go up, at getting out at the right time. Terrible. So I was like, Mr. Hunker Down, give me that 3%, I won't go anywhere. And you know, if you work somewhere 31 years, 3% when they're doubling it and adding to it adds up. So anyway, I gave most of my money to that guy, and I said, I'm gonna hold back $100,000 so I can build this addition to our house. He said, we can do that. I said, I'm gonna Airbnb. I'm gonna rent it. You know, after I get done with the office part, I'm gonna rent it, turn it into an Airbnb. I was already with him at that point. I'm gonna turn it into an Airbnb. He said, I don't know if you can make any money on that or not. Well, it took 3 years to pay back. So after the first year, he said, how's that thing doing? I'm like, here's what it's doing. He said, oh, that was really a good decision. So anyway, I didn't have to work to 70. You know, that filled in the void. The Lord blessed us, and I was able to retire at 65 like kind of normal people do. And so it's been good. So, yeah, like the first year we rented it 200 nights, and it's been good. So I'm working for this company who's been around since 1912, and they had never offered a get out package, a severance package. But in the years, 5 years, 10 years before I retired, they had new management come in from other places, and they brought all their friends in at these really high pay level jobs doing nothing. And then they went public, and the stock's kind of doing this, and so they came up with this package. If you're 64 years old and you've been with the company 3 years, we're going to offer you a severance package. I'm like, 64, how many 61-year-olds have we hired? Now, oh, it's all the president's friends. He's just giving them a going away present because he can't afford to keep them anymore. And I happen to fit in that window, and my boss like, no, you're essential. You can't do this. I'm like, money talks. And so they didn't offer anymore, so I got to leave. So that was another one of God's blessings. So that's my story. Work is not stopped. I'm just not on a payroll anymore, except I get Social Security. And so you asked me what I've been doing. So I've actually got I'm not going to show you all these pictures. Retirement projects. Look at that. So anyway, you know, just stuff I've been doing the last 5 years. I built a little stone patio. I resurfaced a pier and a dock, and put new flotation under the dock, and built a waterfall, and cut some more wood, refinished a bench. Still using my hands. Built another storage rack. Sold the truck. Then things slowed down. We've redone every room in the house, but the main bathroom didn't have any windows in it. Nice privacy, got a skylight. And Sue really wanted a window where the bathtub was. So anyway, we destroyed the bathroom, tore it all out, and now I have a nice big window. No neighbors yet, but we got a nice big window right next to the bathtub. And so that was a project that took longer than expected. I didn't do all that. I learned on tile. Actually, I got fired for doing tile. I won't tell you in our house where it is, because then you go look at it, but I got fired on my last tile job. Had to replace some windows, yeah, after 40 years. So did that. And that's just to be about it. Oh, while I'm busy doing one thing for her birthday, this front door came up on Craigslist, on Marketplace. I've been looking for a door for 3 years. And so anyway, I replaced the front door. So that's it. Hopefully all of you have two hands, and ask the Lord to bless them and show you how to use them for constructive ways, and ways to, you know, there's a sense of accomplishment when you finish something. I'm a better starter than I am finisher. I like starting stuff. Finishing's the last nail, no, don't put it in. But use your hands to save and be able to retire comfortably. You know, I didn't know if that was ever going to be in the picture, but it's doing pretty good right now. So, any questions?
Yeah, a lot of young people like rent or have roommates, so space is tough to come by. Do you have any tips for like saving money on work when you don't have access to the right tools or don't have a way to like store them efficiently?
Yeah, that's a tough one. You got to come up with a locker, prioritize what tools you need, which ones are bulky that you don't have to have. Space is always an issue. So if you can find somebody that has some space, like a little 5x5 area that you could call your locker, hey, you might, for $100 a year, if I could have that corner, I'll keep my tools there. Just kind of open-ended, let's just do it year by year. And so that's $8 a month. And you can't rent a tool for that.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's something I come up off the top of my head. Yeah.
So you were talking about the Airbnb in above your garage.
Right.
So, like, how did that like look like finance wise? Like, was that like how did you come up with Airbnb versus renting out? What made you change from
Okay.
moving to rent to Airbnb?
So long-term rent to somebody, $1,200 a month, is that kind of a normal number for a one-bedroom thing?
Yeah.
Okay. And we started off at $150 a night. So if we rent it 8 nights, we're at $1,200. But then we got to pay. We got people that help us in the church here that clean, so we pay them. As far as the tax angle of depreciation and all that, it's the same for long-term versus short-term. And our unit is only 1 bedroom, queen-size bed, no kids, no dogs, no crayons, no markers, So it's in as good a shape as it was 8 years ago when we started. So that's kind of key. Also, it's on property. It's attached to our house with a 5-foot roof, so it's really not attached, but according to a building permit, it is attached because there's a breezeway there. So we didn't have to like have separate utilities and another septic tank and all that kind of stuff. But the people that are there, they got 4 exterior walls. They have total privacy. We don't interact with them if they don't want to. So just really looking at the number, Sue's like, at some point, I'm not going to want to be Mrs. Airbnb, scheduler, calendar girl, doing all this stuff, and we may want to do a long term. We had a guy that works for your sister company over here on North Main Street that builds the ISVs. He's from Israel, and he came and stayed with us, and he's like, can I rent the whole month? We're like, yeah, if you go ahead and book it. Well, he doesn't know when he's going to be here and when he's not, but probably this winter he'll be renting a month at a time, and we'll give him a discount, but it won't be $1,200 a month. It'll be probably 3 times that. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I've done a lot of research into the kind of talking, because I do HVAC and whatnot, so I've
Right.
talked with customers that have had rental properties and Airbnb and
Right.
there. I was just wondering your experience with
It's been good. We've talked to neighbors that don't like certain situations where guys buy a house that, there's a guy who lives in Colorado and he has 30 or 40 houses on the lake and they're just party houses and everybody around him hates it. So that's bad. That's a bad reputation, but we haven't, we've only had one situation in 8 years where we had to kick people out. So personally, I like the short term just because the income is better. And if you get a long-term tenant that you don't like, you got a long-term tenant you don't like. So that's not good. Any other questions? Come on, I didn't explain it that well. Yeah.
So we're looking to buy a house soon, and we've kind of decided on a new build simply because there's so much builder promotions like buying down the interest rate and the warranties and no maintenance, for quite a while. And kind of the big dilemma is, number one, they all start high, but like the cheapest you're gonna find when we're looking in Salisbury It's like a 1,500 square foot house for 300,000.
So that's like 250 a square foot.
Yeah, or we could spend 40, 50 grand more, which is kind of pushing it a little bit now, but we get 2,500 square foot, almost double the house, which long term is gonna, appreciate better and be worth more. Is it
I mean,
better
just,
to kind of start off small and try and build up, or get one that we can grow into and not have to keep buying new house?
I'm gonna do some math. Do those numbers again. 2,500 square feet for,
2,500 square feet for 340, or like 1,500 for 300. Because the payment's gonna be pushing it a little, and we'll have to try and find ways to save elsewhere, but, we'll eventually grow into that
Right.
payment as, prices around go up and,
right,
our
so,
mortgage stays the same for the next 30 years.
right, so I'm just doing dollars per square foot. That's $136 per square foot. That's a deal. The other one was, 1,800 for, how much?
It was, 300 for, like, the models of 15 to 1,600 square feet.
300,000.
Because we're looking at the bigger one, but it's just the payment with property tax and mortgage insurance and all that, because we don't have the 20% down
Right.
with our first home. I mean, we're looking at 2,400 a month, which seems crazy, but it's better to have a home, an actual home, and build equity than 1,600 a month in a 2-bedroom apartment.
Right, right.
I'm just worried about kind of spreading ourselves a little too thin at the start.
Yeah, what's the rule, 25%, I think? 25% of your income?
It'll be more like 35.
Yeah, they say no more than 25% of your total income should go toward your house.
Because it costs so much to,
How much extra is it for the mortgage insurance?
the mortgage insurance is like $160 a month, but we are looking into using some of like the builder credits to potentially buy it out up front
Right.
and save a bunch that way
Yeah,
instead of putting like some towards closing costs.
Any way you can get rid of that, that's just funny money, yeah.
Yeah,
If you got a relative that, that you like a lot, that you could give them 8%. Give them something more than they can get on a CD. And offer it to them, say, hey, I need this little chunk of money for this period of time. And right now they're going CD rates 7%. Could I pay you 8%? Would you let me have that money so I don't have to pay this mortgage insurance? You'll be ahead, I'll be ahead, and the mortgage insurance people won't be ahead. So any way you can get away from paying that would be the first step on either scenario. But I've always heard you don't want to stretch more than 25% of your total income. So get a raise. I'm just kidding.
and it's just so hard because
Yes.
home prices nowadays are so crazy. It's like you spend $250 on a house that is 80 years old, needs a bunch of work, 3-bed, 1-bath, or it's like you get a new build with all their promos, but then they're not built like they used to, and so there's that issue. So yeah, you're not gonna have much maintenance, but how are they really gonna last long term? So it's like,
Kind of like the refrigerator.
trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
But,
Have you looked at foreclosures at all?
yeah, but I mean, the financing on those can be really difficult because you're not really gonna find any loans that take less than 20% with foreclosures. I looked into them a little bit, but.
Okay. It's not good news, but they're coming back in style because people are walking away from houses and stuff, and so that might be an opportunity. I'm just glad I'm past that stage because it's not good right now. I mean, we did the 17 3/4 interest, which is horrible, but now the number on the value of the property. Yeah, anything you can get under under $150 a square foot new is a good deal. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
How did you get your job?
How did I get my job? Which one? Okay. So my first sales job, I went to Florida. Back in my day, I went to school's headquarters And I took so many classes, I didn't need a quarter. When you live in Ohio, Florida's a really good place to go for a quarter. So I went down there and I sold Fuller brush. Fuller brush, man, needing brushes. I got hair brushes, I got fingernail brushes, I got stinky spray for your bathroom, whatever you want. That was my first job. Then I worked in a golf club shop. My first industrial job, I worked for a distributor in Ohio that my dad was part of, and they had closed an operation in a city 30 miles away in Cleveland, and wrote a letter to their customer saying, "We're not coming anymore. If you need us, call us." And the customer didn't like that, so I was kind of the goodwill ambassador there. And then I didn't like Ohio or working in Ohio, so we bought this place, and I talked to the neighbor. This is all God stuff. Talked to the neighbor, and he's like, there's a company in Charlotte that has like specialists, and maybe you could be their power transmission specialist. I'm like, okay. So I contacted them and said, no, we have one right now. We don't need a guy. Thanks anyway. So that winter, that Christmas, I had my mother-in-law type up resumes, back when you typed instead of using a computer. And I made 10 copies, and I mailed them to 10 companies in Charlotte, because that's where we wanted to come, because it's kind of where our house was. And the day I mailed that, the other company called up and said, our specialist quit. We'd like to talk to you. So I went down and interviewed and got the job. And my wife was working for AT&T, and they had done their divestiture at that point. Nobody was moving laterally. People were just like hanging on for their job. And God let her have a transfer from Ohio Bell to Southern Bell. So that was cool. And so then I'm doing that job for 8 years, working for this distributor. And I'm working with the Gates guy the first time. Gates was the name of the company I worked for, finished with. I'm like, hey, can you go to Statesville with me? No, that's not my territory. I'm like, okay, can you go to Rock Hill? We're in Charlotte. No, that's not my territory. I'm like, dude, where's your territory? It's like, well, Charlotte all the way out to Wilmington, plus or minus 10 miles off of 74. I'm like, that's a weird small territory. I'm like, when are you gonna retire? He's like, I don't have any plans to retire. Well, the company did a reorganization, and his job got eliminated because his territory is so small. So they replaced him with another guy. And so I'm working with the other guy one day, and we go to his office to pick up some stuff. And he's like, oh, let me introduce you to the senior field engineer. There's this guy my age in there with his feet up on the desk, reading the newspaper. I'm like, hi, I'm John, I'm with such and such company. Yeah, good to meet you. So the next, like 6 months later, we go by there again, and the same guy's in there reading the same, not the same paper, but today's paper. I'm like, what's that guy do? He's kind of like a specialist. He goes on projects that are going to take us in the field too long, and he gets deeper involved than we do on the surface. I'm like, that's cool. He said, would you like that job? I said, yeah, I'd like that job. Is he going to retire? He said, well, he's got some health issues. He probably will. So the dude retired. So I called my friend's boss in Atlanta at home. This is before cell phone. I'm like, hey, I'm John Croley. I work for Industrial Textile Supply. I sell a lot of Gates product, and I'd like to have Paul Alley's job. He's like, well, Paul's definitely retiring, but that's not an entry level. But Ray's probably gonna get that job. Would you like Ray's job? I'm like, I don't know, all I do is belts. He said, well, you gotta do hydraulics and you gotta do industrial hose too. You can figure it out. So anyway, that's how I got my job, by asking. Yeah. It was a real blessing. Any more questions? I saw your hand move. It was like being in an auction. Don't move your hand. All right. Well, thanks everybody for your time. I hope this was beneficial.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want any like bad reviews or anything.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We will be back in the sanctuary next week. Guest speaker coming from Mexico to speak to us. She is my cousin who's a missionary. So she's going to talk about the Lord's provision for us. So I'm super excited. Hope to see you there. Sorry the first like 2 or 3 minutes got cut off, but it'll be okay. So, all right, thanks y'all. See you next week.